Then we would also be simulating the software, right? More about it's mainly about just green. I always like starting. Yeah, I always like starting these sessions with this short quiz. Which of these is a green building? Just to test your minds. Sorry, A? H or A? Any reason? Oh, because of the solar panels. Okay. Any other opinion? Yes, which one? All of them. Why? Okay. Okay. Any last opinion? Any last one? Any of the ladies want to volunteer? Hmm? I'm waiting for the last answer from the ladies. I see there are two ladies here, so yes. Which one?
A as well.
A.
Yeah.
Because of the solar.
Perhaps.
Okay. All right. All right. So actually, they are all green. They are all green, but not because you can see with your eyes. Not because of the solar panels, not because of the design and all that, but then because all of these have been certified green, right? For a project to qualify as green, one of the main things it has to get a certification. It's difficult for you to, to look with your eyes to assume that it's green. One of the things that people look at is the solar panel. So, it's not surprising that was the first thing that caught your attention. We usually assume that once there's a solar panel on the building, automatically it's green, right? So that's one thing I'm hoping after today's session we'll be able to understand some of these elements in there. Okay. Okay, yes. So we define a green building basically as a building that is at least 20% more efficient in its performance compared to a local baseline. Right, so that's the main thing. It has to be efficient in the use of energy, water, and then materials. And it should be based on the local baseline. So meaning that we are comparing apples to apples. If I'm building in Kenya, in Nairobi to be specific, I'm comparing the project that I'm doing in Nairobi, which is an office building, to similar office buildings in Nairobi. And then saying that my project, because of the measures I've put in there, it's making it at least 20% more efficient, right? And how do we do these calculations? We will look at that later. The other aspect is it has to be certified green by an independent third party. So someone should have assessed your project and confirmed that, yes, the measures that you are putting in there is making it more efficient than others. Right, so it could be any of the green certifications. There is LEED, there is EDGE, there is BRAM, there is Green Star. Any of these certifications, it should have one of it. Right, it's not enough for me to say that because I have solar panels on my building, it's green. Right, and then the last part of it, which is the quantified impact reporting, which becomes very necessary, especially when you are looking for green financing. You should be able to report on how much energy is being saved, how much water is being saved, what the greenhouse gas impact of the project is, and all of that. So once you're able to meet all of these three criteria, it qualifies to be a green building, and then you also qualify to assess any green financing that is available in the particular market where you're operating. So just a step back, The EDGE program was started by the World Bank Group, specifically IFC. IFC is a member of the World Bank Group, but our focus mainly is on the private sector. We look at coming up with innovations that will enable the private sector thrive. Our other sister companies are IBRD, IDA, MEGA, and then ICSID. Right, so IBRD is what is popularly known as World Bank, working very closely with governments. Okay, so why are we keen on green buildings? We see it as a very low-hanging fruit for us to combat the issues of climate change. We do a lot of things in building. Building is basically where we do almost everything. And in these buildings, a lot of GHG emissions are trapped in there. And for developing countries, for instance, in the next 50 years, there will be a lot more buildings coming up. Now, are we still going to continue doing the things the way we do so that we will be tracking in all of these emissions, right? So it gives us the opportunity for us to take a second look at how we build, right? Making sure that we do things the right way. If we compare to the developed countries, you will see that they are now doing a lot of retrofits, right? But on our side, we're actually doing new buildings and making these new buildings to be efficient. It's easier and cheaper than now incurring costs and then having to make changes to it to become efficient, right? So it gives us that opportunity for us to really start things on a very clean slate. Now, what's the strategy for IFC when it comes to green building? It's in 4 parts. The first part is our investment in banks. So we work closely with financial institutions. We are able to provide funding for these banks who are now able to on-lend to other projects and other developers, right? And what we try to do is we also make sure that we educate them on how they can come up with green products. So, products like green bonds, green loans, green mortgages. These are very key specialized areas that we have people within IFC that's able to support our financial institution clients to implement, right? And then we just don't tell them to do it. We actually give them that support, the hand-holding, so that it becomes possible. And then we also invest directly in projects. So with real estate developers and key projects that come up, affordable housing, tourism, hospitality, retail, in fact, across all the value chain. What we do is whenever we are investing in any project, it has to be green. So if it's not green, we are unable to even start the discussion with the firm. Right, so that's what we also do. And we don't tell you just to go make your project green. We provide you with the options on how we can help you to get the project to be green. Right, so there's some sort of capacity building and then training and awareness in there. And then the third part of our strategy is green building quotes and incentives with governments, where we try to make sure that we work with governments and cities, major cities, to take a second look at what specific incentives can be implemented in their cities and countries so that it becomes very easy and attractive for developers and people that want to go green. Right, so we'll be looking at some of the incentives that we've helped other governments and other cities to implement. Another aspect is the codes. The regulations, the building codes know that we are able to support these governments and cities to come up with the relevant codes that would be able to push the agenda of green building, right? And we will also see some few examples of places where we've been successful. And the last part of it is the edge certification itself, which allows a developer to brand their project as being green. You are able to use that to attract the right tenants to your project, and then also you're able to use that to attract green financing for your project. Okay, so we are seeing the growth of green buildings across the world. It's going at a very exponential rate, right? And there are reasons for this. We'll be looking at that in the next slide. And one of the key reasons is we're seeing some governments in other countries coming up with some very key incentives, right? And some of the incentives that we've been able to help governments come up with, there's tax incentives, which it's seen in Colombia and Brazil, where for projects that meet the green standard, they are able to get either a waiver of their taxes or a reduction in the tax, right? The bonus density is also another interesting one. With bonus density, what it's trying to say is if for that area where the project is being done, the zoning requirement says it has to be 4 floors. By virtue of the fact that the project is being built green, they are able to add, a 5th floor to it. This means extra income for the developer. So it becomes an attractive option for them. And what we've seen is that incentives are always better than having the laws or the regulations. Because with the incentive, it's a voluntary thing. But the developer understands that if he's able to do that, he would get this benefit in return, right? So it makes it easier for them to comply. Another one which we've seen, actually this was done, expedited permitting, Argentina and then in Ghana as well. One of the cities in Ghana were also implemented as where projects that were being done green had a priority when it comes to receiving their building permits, right? So, in Ghana, for instance, permits can take a long time. Now, how soon a developer gets his permits is very key because that is when he can now start his the work that he wants to do. So it becomes very key for them. If you look at legislation, same as in Ghana as well, we worked with the government to come up with new building codes and then building regulations that embedded the green in there. So it makes it compulsory for certain types of buildings. So in Ghana, it's looking at buildings above 8,000 square meters and then public buildings. They needed to go through a particular requirement to ensure that certain green requirements are in there, right? So these are some of the things that we are seeing happening all over the world, and it's led to the increase in there. And we also seeing investors setting new standards, right? They are all making it a requirement for for their investments to meet a certain minimum of green in there. So because of that, you're seeing now a lot of projects making sure that they are able to meet that. So for ICMA, GRES, Climate Bonds Initiatives, CDP, European Commission, they are all making this a requirement, right? So now it makes it very key that if you really want to get certain type of support, these are some of the banks that IFC is working with directly across the globe. So very soon we should be seeing a lot more Kenyan banks in here. Although we are seeing ABSA, it's a South Africa one where we worked with. We are working with ABSA here as well. And hopefully we would be able to announce some sorts of incentives sometime next year when we have another conference. Okay, so why do we build green? Another element that we've seen, or it's one key complaint, is going green is expensive, right? And that we think has mainly been because of what we assume to be green. The perception that a green building should look a particular way. So on Tuesday, we had a tour of some green projects in Nairobi. And I'm sure those of you that attended that tour, it helped you to really understand what these projects did to become green. And you'd realize that they were nothing out of the ordinary, right? They were simple things that other developers or other projects can easily do, but they may not have thought about it, right? So I think for all the projects that we saw, it was only one that had solar panels as their source of energy, right? So it tells you that solar panel is not the key element when it comes to a project being green. There are countless elements that you can look at, right? So if we now start projecting that image, that's a green building, I mean, that necessarily mean it has, it's a building that has expensive gadgets in there or looks very sophisticated, then it becomes easier for us to really understand that process. However, from the work that we have been doing, we work across the globe. Every country, we have projects that we work on. What we are seeing for projects that are meeting the edge standards, it's the maximum cost that we see is about 3% extra. And the payback is actually around 3 years. Right? However, it's difficult for a lot of developers and professionals to do these calculations. So immediately we assume that it's expensive. Right? And when it comes to the benefits, all the different stakeholders, developers, owners, occupiers, the banks, they all tend to gain. Right? I mean, by virtue of the fact that a green building basically should save you on energy and then on water. Most of the time it comes with lower operating costs. And for those of you that were in the session yesterday, where I think somebody from IHS was explaining their experience, where they are able to get their tenants to save at least 1 month's rent within the year by virtue of the fact that all their projects were green, right? So these are some of the benefits that you get to see. And when it comes to leasing of spaces, most of you will agree with me that a lot of international clients are basically looking for green spaces to lease. So if a project is green, it gives you that opportunity to attract such level of clientele for your projects. Okay, so basically what we're seeing, the benefits far outweigh this incremental cost. In fact, there are some of the projects that are going green without an extra cost, right? It all depends on how you decide to go green, which measures you looked at to go green. That's this thing. Okay, yeah. So I can put all into three. The main benefits, lower operating costs. In some markets, we are seeing green buildings selling and renting faster and even at higher prices compared to ordinary buildings. And then the key thing is future-proofing against any higher energy cost and climate change policies. We are seeing a lot of changes coming up. And what we are seeing to be constant is all of these changes that are coming are trying to make buildings more resilient. So if right from the beginning, you decide to ensure that your project is green, it ensures that the value of your project doesn't depreciate. I mean, you are always above it because if there is any changes in regulation, it doesn't affect you, right? In certain parts of Europe and all that, if your building doesn't meet a particular level of energy efficiency, you're unable to even rent it out or lease it, right? And we are seeing same coming here in Africa. South Africa, at the beginning of this year, they had this new energy labeling system, which made it important for buildings to have a certain level of efficiency, right? So getting your project to be green right from the start ensures that you do not have to go through any changes later on. So this is the IHS example that's Godfrey talked about yesterday. They actually did a case study of all their projects that has been certified green and then compared it to those that were not green. And they were able to see the cost savings on utilities over a period of time for all the different type of units that they have. They're also able to see what the incremental costs for each of the units were, right? So that then gives them a big picture of what they were doing and how they can be able to even improve on them. So just a quick question. If we are seeing, if there's so much value in going green, why are we not seeing a lot of green buildings springing up? Anybody care to give an opinion? Please go ahead.
I think there's a general lack of awareness within the consulting community. Consulting here meaning, the architects, quantity surveyors, service engineers, mechanical engineers, the whole spectrum of the project teams that would put up these buildings. So that traditional approach is still very much embedded in a lot of these teams that put up these projects.
So it means that we need to do a lot more awareness. We need to do a lot more of start sessions, get people to understand why you need to go green and how you can go green and what even qualifies to be green. Yeah. Any other opinion?
Yes, and another challenge, and it's partly being solved by the Kenya Green Building Society, is even if you understood it and you want to go green, there's just lack of understanding as to who the suppliers are. Like if you want to get smart meters, who do you go to for basic things like that? So just being able to understand who are the contact people, who are the players in the market. And if that, KGBS is trying to map it out, but if we could finish or if all the participants could collaborate, then it becomes a lot easier to implement these green projects.
Yeah, great. And just to talk about that particular work that KGBS is doing, it's great. They are trying to put together more like a very comprehensive list of suppliers in the market for certain green elements. So if it's LED lighting or energy efficient lighting, efficient air conditioner and all that, they are putting together that database so that it becomes easier. And this now is free. So it's an online thing. You can always go to that particular website and then be able to look out for it, right? Sorry, there was a hand up there.
Yeah, so I think another challenge with regards to the cost implications of having green buildings. And I think another question we need to ask ourselves is if we can have affordable houses which are green certified. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so cost is also another thing. Right. Okay, there's a hand here.
Okay, maybe most of the structures for selling is for residential. You usually build and sell. So when you're talking about the benefits, it's usually the rental, the guys who are building for rental, who will then get the benefit over time. So there's no incentive for somebody really, especially locally, to add the extra cost, and then you build and you sell and you're off. So I feel that's the issue, especially residential.
Yeah, it's true. That's one of the feedback we get from developers, that if I'm going to make my project to be so efficient and then I sell it, I'm not getting that benefit. However, by virtue of you building to be green, it makes your project more attractive. You're able to market it as green. So that's also another angle that, you may want to look at it.
Good morning. I'm a developer from Uganda. I think in our case, it's even the availability, the exposure. I don't know a single certified architect, green architect in Uganda. So it begins there. And of course, the supplies of such materials, as the developers, we may be willing to do so, but the level of exposure and experience of our architects and all the other stakeholders, I think it should start even from, it should be embedded now in the curriculum of what we teach at the level of learning, maybe at the bachelor or master's level, to produce architects who are already trained in the green field.
Yeah, so it's more about a capacity building, letting people understand. But however, there are some edge experts in Uganda. At least per my last count, we have about 5. So there are, but then like you're saying, the awareness is not there. People do not even know these guys are available to support projects in Uganda. Right. Okay, so let's go ahead. Yeah. So all that you mentioned are right. We've actually put it together into just 3 key things. The first one being the misperception, right, of the costs that being very high. Like I said, it is not easy to estimate these costs. Sometimes you may need to get a very experienced consultant who will do the modeling of, okay, if I'm going to incur this much in including these measures, what would be the long-term benefit and all that. It's a bit confusing and very difficult, right? So it is not easy. And then it's also very complex to even look at the cost-benefit analysis of the green options that you want to choose. Which particular green option would be best suited for my project, right? So that's also another thing. And then certification fees in the past has been very expensive. I don't know if any of you have certified a project before. You realize that it's not cheap, right? So that also becomes another element that pushes people back, and then they decide not to go green. So the EDGE program was actually developed to try and then provide some sort of solutions to all the problems that we identified when it comes to promoting green and building green. This thing is difficult to use. Okay. Okay, so we've already gone through this. And then also finally to look at the main reasons why we have to also look at green. First one is access green finance. It's possible for you to access green finance if your project is green. You're able to issue a green bond. Akon is speaking over there, I think in about 30 minutes, and they will tell you they were able to issue the first green bonds here in Kenya because their projects were certified green. Their entire portfolio of student accommodation was green, so they're able to do that. I'm able to establish a green portfolio for a REIT. Earlier this morning, there was a discussion on the REIT, and for you to be able to get a green REIT means that one of the key conditions would be for the project that you want to include in that REIT to be green. And then future-proofing your assets, which I already spoke about. The last part is streamlining your ESG reporting, right? Especially for portfolio owners. Reporting, ESG reporting has become key. You are getting a lot of regulators in different countries, making it a requirement for you to disclose on your ESG standard for a particular organization. So getting these projects to be green makes it easy, and you're able to get this done. Now, when it comes to certifications, there are a lot of them. So as you can see on this slide, these are just some of them. We just selected some of the very popular ones. I'm sure you would recognize at least one of them here, and all of them refer to different countries. But however, there are a few of them that are very global. I can point out Green Star, EDGE, there is also LEED, BREEAM is also there. DGNB, it's mainly in Germany as well. Right, so there are a lot of options when it comes to green building certifications that one can choose from. But then each of them have their own basic requirements. So, for instance, LEED looks at a very holistic thing. It looks at your transportation, waste, a whole lot of things. It's very, very comprehensive. You'd have DGMB also looking at something else, right? So it's always best to see which one suits your particular circumstances, and then you can follow suit on that. So we would be focusing on EDGE for this particular session. EDGE is an acronym which means Excellence in Design for Greater Efficiencies, right? It includes a free software which Gladys would help us go through later. the achievable standard of 20%, and then the verified green label, and also being able to report on your impact in a very simplified manner, right? So just to dive in deeper, on the free software, its main purpose is to enable you to understand what qualifies to be green. How can I get my project to become green? Which measures can I put in there for it to be green? Right, so that's what the purpose of that software is supposed to do. And then it also lets you know what the incremental cost of going green is. So if I choose this particular measure to go green, how is it going to affect my pockets? Right, what's the implication on the cost of my entire project going to be? Right, so that's what it looks at. And then also, once it's able to establish what the incremental cost is, it gives you an idea of the payback, so that you are able to make a decision on why you want to go green. Right, so it tries to make it simple for you to, decide that yes, we want to build this project to be green, or no, we don't think we should go green because it's too expensive. Or let's choose this cheaper option of going green because these measures are easier to implement. And the achievable standard of 20% is looking at how well you are using energy, water, and materials. Right, so can you show that your project is saving at least 20% in the use of energy, in the use of water, and then the use of materials. Materials, basically, we are looking at how much energy was used in the manufacturing of that material. But you are not supposed to do any calculation. All of this is done by the software. So that's the beautiful thing about it, where you do not need to really do a lot of work for you to get to that level. And then once your project meets the achievable standard of 20% across all three, you're able to get the certification, which is the green label, which you can use to brand your project as being green. Right. On the right-hand side here, this is just looking at the growth of EDGE globally. And as you can see, it's been an exponential growth right from 2015 when the program started. In Africa, it started in South Africa sometime around 2015, 2016. And as you can see, that's why we have South Africa being where there's a lot more progress. So you can see South Africa, it's where within Africa we have a lot more progress. 7% of all the certification that we've done globally is coming from South Africa. As at February, we've done around 50 million square meters. EDGE certifies about 1 million square meters almost every month. Right, so it's growing. It's growing, and surprisingly, we are seeing growth also coming from Africa. The last year, there's been a lot of demand for EDGE certification across Africa as well. Okay, this is how the certificate looks like. Basically, it allows you to see what the savings are for your particular project. So on the left-hand side, you can see the energy savings, the water savings, and the material savings for your project. And then at the back, it goes into details on exactly what was done and the energy. So which measures was implemented in the project and the energy, which measures was implemented in the water and the materials. You're able to get all of that information over there. And this certificate is able to ensure that your project actually is meeting a particular standard, so that if it's a requirement from an investor or from a government or a city agency, you are able to, once this certificate is presented, it means that you've met that guideline. And EDGE basically is recognized globally. So when it comes to all the green finance standards, we are yet to come across any of them that doesn't recognize EDGE, right? So it makes things very simple and easy for you. Now, on the other I think I would want to mention about Edge is the fact that it has that cost calculator which I spoke about, and it really helps you to understand why you want to go green and how you are going green, what the process is, right? So basically, we say that Edge allows you to go green at your own level, at your own pace, right? You go green because you have done your own analysis and then see that it's the best decision for your project. You are not going green because IFC says it's good to go green, or because you've read somewhere that green projects would help reduce the impact of climate change, right? But then you have done your own analysis, you see the benefits for you, right? So that's what the cost calculator helps you to do. And then what I want to also mention is the streamlined process. For most of the certification systems that we've seen, it takes a very long time for you to get the certification, right? But with Edge, it's a streamlined process, and you're able to get the certification at a shorter time, right? You're able to do that within the software. Everything is done within the software. You are able to select the measures, submit proof, submit documentation. Everything is done within the software, right? So it makes things very easy and simple, especially if you know what you are doing. Because obviously, yes, Gladys is an auditor, and she'll tell you we have some projects that have taken like a year to get certified. At the same time, we have projects that takes like less than a month to get certified, right? So it's basically depends on whoever is managing the process from the client side. This thing has a mind of its own. Okay, so this is also a snapshot of Edge. So these are the results we've had since 2015 until, as at 2023, February. At least 89 countries have had a project certified. We are seeing housing units being certified. We have a total of about 360,000 housing units that has been certified as well. If you look at the map on the right-hand side, you can see there are projects almost everywhere in the world. It's also interesting in Africa. We are seeing projects in different places: Madagascar, Mauritius, Mozambique, Zambia, Burkina Faso, Djibouti, Somalia. We're seeing projects being certified in all of these places. So it tells you that going green is not only restricted to certain geographic locations, right? It's possible to get your project to be green, no matter where it's located. And then the other thing that we do, so this is actually something that IFC helps our clients that get their project certified. We are able to do this directly with you. Award recognition. Once projects get certified, we make sure that if there is any award that is within your category of project or your geographic place, we push you for it. The brand visibility. We do all of this so that your project is out there. People get to know about it. You are able to really be seen as a leader when it comes to this piece. Right. So I won't go through all of them. I'll share these slides so we can be able to just look at them later. So these are some of the case studies. We'll go through them quickly before Gladys comes to take us through the software. This is ALP, and with ALP, they started their certification journey sometime in 2018. At the moment, all their warehouses are certified with Edge, right? They even have taken the pledge to go net zero within the next few years. So by net zero, it means they want to go totally off-grid, right? And if you look at the solutions that they chose to go green, they had solar PVs, they had skylights for their project, and then they had insulation of the walls, insulation of the roofs, insulation of the floors, and then they had low-flow plumbing fixtures. They are estimating 16,000 USD savings on utilities every month for their warehousing as a result of the measures that they included in their projects. We can also look at this one, executive residency. The interesting thing with this project is the fact that it was a retrofit, right? So it wasn't designed to be green. But then the client, after completion, decided to make certain changes to get it to be green, right? So that also helps us to understand that it's not only new buildings that we can push onto the path of green. It's possible to do retrofit. If you've already finished building and then you need to make the changes, it can be done. We currently have a client who owns projects all over Africa. And for the past few months, what they've been doing is making sure all of these projects are being simulated and assessed to see what changes can be done so that they can certify green. And they are doing this because one of their key investors is putting a lot of pressure on them that they have a deadline where all their investment needs to be green. So, I mean, for them to continue working with them, they have to make sure all their projects are green, right? So they are now, they've been able to certify a few of them in Ghana. They are doing some in Nigeria as well and in Zambia, right? So it's possible. If the project is already built, it's possible to use the software to check what changes can be done, and Gladys will help us see that. So let's see some other projects. This is Rehoboth Properties in Ghana. So they tend to say it's an affordable housing project, and we're selling these for range of between 30,000 USD to the most expensive was about 90,000 USD when it started.
Thank you very much, Eric. I think I've been given a very big warning.
Are you able to
that I'm standing here between your lunch. So I've got a very big.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so, I went back. Yeah, so they were also able to get these projects certified, and these are the measures that they used. They had reduced window-to-wall ratio, they had natural ventilation with no air conditioning, they had energy-saving lighting for both the internal and external areas, and then they had efficient water fixtures. Right, so these were the measures that they used to go green. There's also another project, the National Home Ownership Fund Estates. This is actually a government project that was done in Ghana. And they also decided to make sure that they included green measures in there to achieve the A certification. Right, so you can see they all went green using different measures. And we would look at these measures in depth when Gladys starts the. Okay, so Edge is available all over the world in different typologies, right? And it's surprising we are seeing different type of projects wanting to get certified. In Ghana, we certified the Ghana Infectious Disease Center, which was a hospital that was done during COVID time. Right, Madagascar certified their airports. Indonesia came to us last year wanting to certify the oldest mosque in there. Right, so it cuts across. We are seeing schools in Uganda. Currently, there is a school that is being certified with Edge. Kenya, actually, the Aga Khan University was certified last year. Right, so we're seeing different typology of projects being certified. Edge is not only limited to housing or to offices. It cuts across. Any type of project at all can be certified using Edge. Okay, so I would invite Gladys to come and then do the simulation of the Edge app. She will take us through the software so we understand how it works and all that. However, she would have to be at the back because the IT couldn't get to the front. so she would connect the laptop to their system at the back, but we can view on the screen here. Okay, you can connect the charger.
do that. So you will just observe. We'll give you the questions, all right, but you just observe. Then when you go home, you can have a try. So the Edge website, www.edgebuildings.com. This is how the interface looks like, and we have various tabs, which includes a page for certification. So if you want to certify a project, you go to this page, and then you have all the information about how a project can be certified, the various certifiers we have, and the way their pricing is done. So you can contact them, get a quotation. We also have the marketplace where we have all the players in Edge, developers, banks, government, Edge experts, Edge faculties, etc. So if you want to know more about how the developers play, the role they play in Edge certification, you just go there, you have all the information there. Edge experts are people who have been trained. They are professionals who are trained to provide consultancy services for clients going through the Edge certification. So if you go to the Edge Experts tab, you will have the list of all the registered or certified Edge experts around the world. And then if you are interested in hiring any of them, you can do that. Edge faculty, they are responsible for training the professionals to become Edge experts. We have the Edge business case, etc. I'll come back later to the Edge app. Another tab is the Edge Academy, where we have various information there, even including the user guide. So everything about Edge is documented. And even when you're going through the certification, all that we need is documentation, evidence of what you are doing. And so how the app is set up, the various assumptions made, the materials being used, all the protocols are available, and the user guides are available here. So you can have a look. Then lastly, I'll talk about the Edge project. So like Dennis said, when projects are certified, we do project studies, okay, in collaboration with the owner and maybe the consultants. So we have a number of projects around the globe which have been certified, and the project studies have been done. And if you visit that page and you have a look at it, you'll get ideas on how people have implemented different measures in achieving green designs, and so you can implement same. Lastly, I'll go to the Edge app, where we would have a feel of how the app works. Okay, so the Edge app is free. It's free. All you need is a how do I call it? A login details. So you create a username and a password, just like you are creating a Gmail account. That's all you need for the Edge, to set up an Edge account, and it's free for all. Okay. Sorry. So assuming you have an account already, as soon as you open it, it takes you to your Edge dashboard. And I have the case study here, which I want to take you through before I start we start modeling it. Okay. So the project we are going to model today, it's a 5-star hotel in Accra, Ghana. Maybe I'm being a bit biased because I'm from Ghana. Pardon me. Next time I'll get a Kenya project. But our hotel is in Accra, and it has an average occupancy of about 85%. and an irrigated area of 500 square meters with in-house laundry, a banquet and breakfast area with health spa and heated outdoor swimming pool. It has 3 floors above the ground and 135 rooms. It has an air conditioning, but no space heating. The hotel uses 10% of its electricity from a diesel generator and all fuel uses for water heating and cooking are gas. So this is a brief description of our project. And in the Edge app, like you see on the screen, can I get the pointer? Okay. Maybe let me just demonstrate. Is it coming? I have to point here. Oh, I should stand there. Before that edge can be used to certify. So as you can see on the left, the extreme left corner, we have the typologies listed there. We have homes, apartments, serviced apartments, hotels, etc. We have the various building typologies. So our case study says that the project is a hotel. So we just go straight ahead and select the typology. It says hotel. So we're going to give a description, just as we have read out to you. We are going to select the various components that describes the project. It says it's a hotel, it's a 5-star hotel, and the hotel is located where? Which city? In Accra. Okay, and Accra is in Ghana, so we'll select the country and the city. The Edge app, when you're using the Edge app, you need to have a lot of patience. It teaches you how to have patience, so please bear with me. Okay, Accra is here. All right. So the next tab we'll go to is the project details, where we'll provide a project name and the address, etc. All right. So it's a hotel. They didn't give us a name, so we can give it any name: Accra Hotel or Accra 5-star Hotel. Any name at all. And the number of buildings is 1. Under the project details, all the asterisk sections, you need to complete them. Without that, you cannot save your project. So we'll focus on those areas. Our project number of distinct buildings is 1, and it's in Ghana. Do you intend to certify? No, this is just for training. Share project name and with investors. We said no. But if you are going through certification and you want investors to know about your project, you can select that.
So actually that option is for clients that are looking for investments. So if you want IFC to share your projects with our partners and the banks that we work with, once that tab is checked, then it means that you are giving us the right to be able to do that. Right? But if you say no, then your project won't be one of those that we share with our investors and our clients.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. So is this project created for training? Yes, it is for training, yeah. So we move on to the next section, which is the sub-project details. The sub-project details, any information you put here will appear on the certificate. So you need to make sure that the information you put here is accurate. So we say that our hotel is Accra Hotel, and one building is just one certification stage. So EDGE can be used to certify new buildings, even new designs. If the project has not been built yet, but you are going through design, EDGE can be used to certify the design, and after construction, you can also certify it. And projects that are already existing, can be certified as well. So our project here is a new design. So we'll say that the certification stage is the preliminary, and it's a new project. We'll give it an address. A city is Accra. The country is Ghana. For the rest, if you register, they will be filled for you. Okay, good. So we come to building data. So I'll go back to read the introduction of the project. It says that it has an average occupancy of 85% and an irrigated area of 500 square meters, in-house laundry, a banquet and breakfast area, health spa, heated outdoor swimming pool, 3 floors above the ground, and 135 rooms. And so, total number of rooms is, can you please help me? Total number of rooms. Did we hear? Okay, 135 rooms. And the number of floors above ground. The number of rooms, floors. 3. Yes, 3 floors above ground. We don't have any floor below, so we put 0 there. We don't have information on the floor-to-floor height and the roof area, so we'll keep it at the default. Okay, we move on to the next section, the areas breakdown. Okay. It says we have a swimming pool, right? Swimming pool. And it's an outdoor swimming pool, which is heated. So we select that. It didn't give us the area of the swimming pool, so we keep the rest as it is at the default. But if you are going through certification, you need to put in the right information. For example, under the area and loads breakdown, so what is the total area for the guest rooms, the restaurant, etc., etc. You need to put that and clearly show on your floor plans. But for this study, we'll just keep it as at the default. Building dimensions were not given, so we'll just keep it as it is. It says that the project does not have a heating space heating system. So we'll set this question: Does the building design include a space heating? We set it to no. It said that it has only air conditioning, but no space heating. Then we go to fuel usage. It says that it has all fuels. The first one says that 10% of its electricity is from diesel generator, and all fuel uses for water heating and cooking are gas. So under fuel usage, we make those changes here. Diesel for generator, yeah, and the percentage, it says 10%, so we need to put that there. And fuel for cooking is gas. We choose LPG, because in Ghana it's LPG we use. And for cooking and water heating, so hot water is here, we choose LPG. And that is all for our design tab. So once we are done, we can save our project. Okay, we'll move on to the next tab before. Want to say something? Okay. All right. So once you set up your design tab, then we'll move on to the next. We'll We move on to the next tab, which is the energy tab. And it's always, it's advisable to move in that sequence. From design, you go to energy, you go to water, then the materials. So for energy, these are the measures that we are looking at. It says that our project has a window to wall ratio of 40%. It has an external shading with AASF of 0.59. It uses water-cooled chillers, which has an efficiency of 5.4, and has boiler for hot water, which is 98% efficient. Then an internal and external lighting, they are energy efficient with luminous efficacy of 100 lumens per watt, and external wall thermal performance of 0.5. So we select the first measure, which is compulsory for all building designs, the window to wall ratio. Our case study says that it's 40%. So you just put the 40% in the app. However, if you are going through certification, then you need to use the edge calculator to calculate the WWR and attach all relevant documentation. It has an external shading of 0.59. So this one, EM04, so 0.59. And water-cooled chillers with COP of 5.4. So we go to the chillers, cooling systems, EM13.
So just to come in here, so what Gladys is doing is, you can see once the design was done, and then you go to energy, it's giving you the bouquet of options that one can choose to get your project to meet the energy standard. The calculation is off. If once you put it on, you realize that any of the measures that she clicks on, it automatically affects what the savings in energy is going to give you. So at the moment, she's now at 15% of energy savings based on the measures that she's chosen. Right, so that's how the Edge software works. You can just go through it quickly and then.
Okay, so we go to domestic hot water system, which is the boiler of 98% efficiency. Do that quickly.
And then also at the top, you're able to see the different impact data, right? You can see what the GHG emissions and savings are. You can see what the incremental cost for the measures that has been chosen is, and what the payback and all of that is. So it's very, very interactive. You are able to just play around it on the project that you are trying to do to get a feel of exactly which measures will be best suited for the projects that you are doing.
Okay. All right, our data is saved successfully. So the next one is the lighting, the efficient lighting for internal and external spaces. Go back. All right. All right, so that one, the guide says that it's 100 lumens per watts for both internal and external. So we put that also there in the app. And our U value of the external wall is 0.5. So once I do that, then we will be done with the energy. We'll move on to water, the water measures. Isolation of external wall, 0.5. Okay, so we move on to the water measures. And for the water, our guide says the project has low flow shower heads with 6.5 liters per minute of flow, and the flow rate of all the taps is 2.5, and the WCs are single flush with a 3.5 liters per flush. So the first measure we select is our shower head, which has a flow rate of 6.5. And all our faucets have 2.5 flow rates. So you see a change. As soon as I updated the shower head flow rates, the energy has changed. The energy savings has gone up. We have 2.5 here. It says all bathrooms have WCs of single flush. So you need to select the type of flush you have. Single flush. Of 2.5. Okay.
And you can see as soon as she pressed the single flush, the water savings reduced. It used to be 15%, and now it came down to 13 because it's assuming dual flush are much more efficient in the use of water than the single flush. Right. So any measure that you click on, it has a direct impact on the project, and you're able to see that directly for yourself.
Okay, so the last measure here is the kitchen taps, which also has a flow rate of 2.5. Then we move on to materials. Okay. All right. So we see how a low flow rate impacts both the water savings and the energy savings. For materials, our measures are a concrete filler slab for roof construction, concrete slab with about 30% PFA for all floors, window frames are timber, and the internal and external walls are solid dense concrete blocks. So for bottom floor construction, we are having a concrete slab, this type. We will leave the thickness and steel rebar at default. Similarly for the intermediate floor construction. We will leave the floor finish at the default. The roof construction, it says that it's concrete filler slab, so we need to select that, yeah. And the exterior wall is solid dense concrete slab with 200 millimeters thickness. Okay, solid blocks of dense concrete, okay. And we have the thickness as 200. We have the same material for the internal wall, but the thickness is different, so we need to select that as well. And the thickness is 150. Okay. All right. Window frames are timber, made of timber. Timber is an option here. Okay, so we leave the glazing and the roof insulation, etc. are the default. So at the end of selecting all the requirements or the measures as have been specified, this is the result we are having. Our energy savings is 24%, with water 38.6% and materials 36.6%.
Yeah, and interestingly, you can also download this simulation. So Gladys will show you. So look at where she's gone to.
Okay, we haven't saved.
Yes, once you save it, you can download it. It gives you full details of the project that you are looking at doing. Now, for a consultant who is trying to convince his clients, it gives you all the details that you can use in a presentation to them. Or even if you're working within a team, you can download this and then use that to present to your team on exactly what you want to do on this project to get it to be green. So it allows you all of that flexibility, and you're able to, now if for this same project, within the team, once you are logged in and you have your login details, you can share the details with different team members who can also have access to the project within the software and make changes as and when it's needed, right? So this is free, and we would encourage everybody to just play around with it and then see how you can make changes to your project. Maybe for your assignment, you can just use that to simulate the house that you live in currently, and then see where it falls if you had wanted to make it green, and what additional things you can do, and what the utility savings is looking like. Right, so we would bring it to an end here, and then if there's any questions, myself and Gladys will be happy to take it. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so there are two hands, one here and then one over there.
Hello, good morning. Thank you very much for your time. I have a mortgage brokerage company where I help people access financing. I wanted to know, first, what is the cost of the certification, and what kind of financing can you access today that is easy to access, not like the very complex DFI financing, but that a developer that needs like $2 or $3 million, is there money that they can access easily at cheaper rates if they get green edge certified?
So certification, basically, I think the standard fees is around 10,000 USD. That's average. So there are two certifiers for Kenya, and they all have a different model, right? But then if you look at the average, it's always around that figure. When it comes to financing, so what IFC has done, we have a program we call MAGIC, Market Accelerator for Green Construction. And in my earlier slides, I showed you what our strategy is, and one of it was working with financial institutions. We are not able to lend directly to every developer because of maybe the size of the project and all that. But then when we work through banks, it's easier. So we have that program where we work with banks. And MAGIC is funded, it's actually a grant from the UK government, which allows these banks to be able to support the developer to build green. So it's free money. That grant goes to the developer and is supposed to pay the extra cost of going green. So it will cover the cost of certification, and then if there are any extra measures that you put in your projects, yes, it covers that cost. Right, so in other countries, like in South Africa, there are 3 banks that are actually implementing MAGIC, including Nedbank, right, so it's easier. In Kenya, yes, we are in the discussions with at least 2 banks, and I can confirm that by the end of this year, there would be at least one of them that will start implementing it, right, so it makes it easy. And then when it comes to financing, I won't be able to give you a rate now. However, we have partners that we can be able to introduce you. So I did mention in the software, if you are certifying your project and you select that particular tab, that indicates that we can share your projects with our partners. We would be able to do that. And some of these guys are looking to work with developers that have certified green, right? So we're able to share the project with some of these clients. One of them is the Africa Go Green Fund, which It's a fund that IFC has invested in. And they are mainly looking at just investing in projects that are green. Luckily, Kenya is one of the countries that they are, that's a priority for them. They have about 5 priority countries in Africa, and Kenya is one of them. So they are eagerly looking at what projects that they can get to fund. Sorry, there was a question here.
Yes, thank you. I'm Andrew from CBRE Capital Markets. So we mainly deal with advisory and transactions. So in terms of
Sorry, CRDB.
CBRE.
Okay, sorry.
So we typically work in the feasibility study. We see a lot of our clients looking for sustainability, and we want to implement part of this as part of our reports, and we do. But the question I have, and I've always wondered, is how country specific it is, because each country has, or each city has its own unique prices. Especially our clients will really be looking at the cost. So for example, is it looking at the actual cost of energy in Kenya and doing those changes? If the price changes, is it active market data?
Yeah, so Garis, can you go to a design tab and then we can, okay, so you're already the design tab. So 2 things. You can see one of the first things she did was to choose location. No, if you can go up to the location, yes. So one of the first things you do is to choose the location. Once you choose the location, the app basically now loads what the baseline for that particular location is, right? So that if you are choosing the measures, it is specific to that particular place. And then on the costs, if you can go down to the data side now, yes. So on the cost of fuel, you can see electricity. It gives you the cost and all that. And it's given to you in cedis because the location she chose was Ghana. So it gives you all of that. So one of the things that we also say, we try to update this all the time. However, when you're working in the app, just make sure that you always check to see that the figure over there is a current one. Because what we've seen is that almost every time prices are changing. Right, prices and they are never coming down, they are just going up. So always try to make sure you check. So it has the cost of fuel, cost of LPG, the cost of water and all that. So you're able to put all that in there. And then also even for conversion rates. So you can convert using a particular rate. Maybe you are thinking about the project being ready, say in the next 2 years' time. You can estimate what the rate would be at that time and then put that in there so that you can get a future rate that you want to use. So it allows you all of these flexibility to achieve what you want. Yeah. Sure. Go ahead.
So 2 questions. The first question, so I'm Simon Kiriba from Bowman Schools on Honey. It's a law firm. I'm practicing many things. I'm a construction and real estate lawyer. On the price, what are the percentages of the additional price that you have seen for a project that is implementing Edge? I know the price ranges differ, the percentages differ, but what have you seen in the market?
You mean price for certification?
No, not for certification, for implementing. Cost. Yeah. And then secondly, maybe you can go back to the slide that you had, the countries that have implemented Edge. Is North America part of it? Is Russia part of it, and China? And if not, what's the conversation there?
Okay, so I'll start with the last question. So yes, we have projects in China. Russia, I would have to check. America, we actually, so Fannie Mae is one of the biggest mortgage firms, and they are also now using Edge. Right. The fact is, when we started Edge, it was mainly for developing countries. But what we saw later was the UK, Germany, and all the other countries were now also using it. So we had to now expand it. So that's why we now have, so if you check the countries, Gladys, we can go up to the location, you realize that there is every country in the world in there now. We've been able to load the baseline for all of these countries. The thing was, every country, especially with developed countries, they all have their certification system. China has their own certification system, which they use. However, because some of them, some projects are looking for international financing, they are forced to use certification systems that are globally accepted, and EDGE falls in that range. Right? You also have the likes of LEED. LEED is also another global certification system, and it's very popular in America. It was developed by America, so it's their own certification. So most projects in the USA you would see are using LEED. In Africa, there are a few projects that are also doing LEED. In fact, here in Kenya, you can count some projects that have done LEED. Right? So it basically depends on the target of the developer. If you are looking at a global sort of reach, then you may be better off looking at using a certification that has that level of exposure and is accepted everywhere. And then there was a question on the incremental cost. Yes, so I had a slide on that as well. For most of the EDGE projects that we've done, what we are seeing is around from 0 to 3% extra, right? And this also depends on when you decide to go green. If after incurring all the costs and doing your procurement and everything, and now you say you want to go green, and now you realize that some of the stuff that you've procured do not meet the standard, it means that you have to make changes, and that is extra cost, right? So we always use the IHS example because they were the first fund in Africa that implemented EDGE on their projects. And they tell us that in the beginning, it was very expensive for them to go green. However, when they now embedded it in their processes, so that if they are going to start any new projects, they have already done a simulation assessment of what measures they want to put in there. They were able to reduce the cost of going green. At the moment, if you speak to them, they tell you that their incremental cost is between 1% to 2% for going green. But when they started, it wasn't there because that at the time they had not mastered or they didn't really understand how the process works. But now they're able to bring it down to that level, right? So when you start the design process or thinking about how to go green is very, very key, right? Retrofits are expensive. And although we are not saying people shouldn't do retrofit, because we need to do retrofit on the existing buildings to meet the standard. But yes, the cheapest way to go green is right at the beginning, rather than at the end. Yeah.
What's the percentage savings on service charges?
On?
Service charge?
So it depends. There was a slide also from IHS that was showing exactly for their own projects what the savings on each of the units is. Right, so basically, if you're looking at least 20%, that's what EDGE is looking at least 20% savings on your utility bill. So if the amount that you're supposed to pay is this much, 100 cedis, or 100 shilling, you are looking at 20% savings on that utility bill. And the software is able to tell you that. So glad if you can scroll up for this project that we did. No, on the stats. On the impact, yes. So this project, once you do the simulation, it gives you an idea of what the savings will be. So you can scroll to the right. Let's see what's there. Okay, so final utility cost was given, and then utility cost savings is also provided over there. So yearly, for this hotel that we simulated, is looking at savings of 70,000 USD every year, right, based on the measures that was chosen. Right, so you're able to see all of these simulations in there, so that right from the beginning, when you go to the market or when you start raising funds, you know what you're looking at.
Another comment? On the EDGE, I understand that it is a relative certification. You need to be better than others. But if it was an absolute certification in the sense that your CO2 emissions, for instance, per square meter, were less than a global average or were less than a certain thresholds, I think most buildings in Kenya would be green, because if you compare with Europe or USA, we have climates where we have very hot summers where we need to use air conditioning and very cool winter where we need to use heating, whereas in Kenya you have a very cool weather where you don't use AC and you don't never use heating. Yeah. So for this reason, the energy consumption of Kenyan households is extremely small in comparison with the one in Europe or US. And I think only for this reason, it could make all of Kenya or all of the countries in Africa that have the same climate as Kenya green. because there's no AC and no heating system.
Yeah, so it's why it's very important to choose the location when you doing the simulation in the app, because once you choose, so for Kenya, for instance, the grid is naturally green. I mean, about 95%, 90% of the grid is renewable, right? So once you choose the location, so you realize that there are some projects that will be certified green in a particular country. Once we change the location in the app, you will see that it changes. The rate, the numbers that you see up there changes. So the location is very key, and it's just like what you explained. That's the main reason why we have the location in there, to make sure that you are comparing apples to apples, right? If I'm not comparing my project in Kenya to a project in Florida, right? Because you said? It should be the same standard if we're green. No, if I'm green, so let's see. If the climate in my country should determine what measures I need to take go green. But my impact on the world. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, I'm lucky that I have a climate. Yes. My impact on the world has to be less. So yes, you have to work harder. You have to work harder, yeah. But then you still get to see what your impact is. It calculates the impact for you. You're able to see what that impact is, and most of the time, so it means that for countries where the level, the baseline is high, it means that whatever change they do, their impact is a bit higher than for places where the baseline is very, very low. And we have countries like that. So there are places where you don't even need to do a lot of measures, right? Because the baseline is that low. So for you to achieve that extra 20%, you don't really need to do much. But then there are places where for you to achieve that 20%, you really need to do a lot more. And the other thing with edges, with time, it changes. So let's say for Kenya, it becomes conventional that everybody is now using LED lighting. What it means is if I click on the LED lighting here, efficient lighting, I need to show that my light is not just LED, but then there is something extra to that light for me to get that extra ratings to it, right? So with time, sorry? You're certifying based on effort. Exactly, you have to now do that. So it's making it very challenging. In fact, when we launched the latest version, after doing another baseline update, people were like, this is too difficult now, right? Especially in South Africa. We are getting a lot of complaints from clients from South Africa that they are not able to meet certification. Because previously, for a same project, they could meet the certification standard by just doing a few things, maybe about 4 measures or 2 measures, they're able to meet it. But for version 3, it's now has looked at what the baseline is there now, what their new regulations are saying, and then making sure that it's meeting it. So it means that for you to get that extra 20%, you have to go over and above, right? So with time, the software is such that with time, it gets the behavior of people to really go up there, right? And then do things like yes, you can explain.
No, it's okay. I'm allowed to. I actually appreciate the idea of us acting responsible, but there is countries, there's competition. So if I'm having good climate, that is a competitive edge to me as a country. Yeah. So if you don't allow me benefit from that, in other words, the cost of building in Nairobi should be much lower than buildings in Cairo. And for that reason, there should be an investor who prefers to set up in Nairobi because his contribution or impact, there is an advantage. Now, if you do it the way you are doing it, you're sort of saying, okay, even though your source of power is 99% renewable, and therefore it's good, and you are not going to reward me for that advantage. I think it's going to be very unfair.
So what we're saying, change your baseline, let it be one size for all.
If you change the baseline, that is not fair. Because
our country decided to implement renewable energy should be something that we're able to. Yeah. So that it makes other countries stop doing coal and go into hydro and geothermal. At a country and policy level, that country, the country's policy should play as an advantage.
Of course. But when it comes to the climate side, it wouldn't be fair for a place where I need to put on air conditioning all the time to have the same baseline as a country that I don't need heating and I don't need air conditioning.
But what we're thinking you should be measuring output either way, whether it has certain advantages because of climate. My carbon footprint and what should be the measure because that's the impact on the world, yeah.
Well, okay.
Like what he's saying, it's our competitive advantage. So if someone is taller and therefore can play basketball,
some countries
we don't say let's have a league for tall guys who play basketball. But anyway, it's philosophical right now. We're going to tell them.
No, we are very worried. Because we know, yeah, this is the international politics.
Yeah.
I think it's very unfair, especially from my opinion.
Okay, but then, okay, fine, I'll take your point. I'll take your point as you say. Yeah.
Yeah, if we're gifted and they have coal, we don't.
Yeah. Dubai has oil.
We don't.
Is it fair that they have oil and Kenya doesn't? That's life. But Kenya has a good climate.
That's nature. That's why people like to be here. They're good climate.
Yeah, yeah. But then we still need to push more.
Yeah. In fact, if you do that, then more people, you're looking at, you might have more people because the baseline is lower.
Yes, actually we realize that there are lots of projects that when they do the simulation, we realize that assets is meeting the standard. They don't need to add any additional measures.
And remember, your mandate is to get people to certify and have people having lower impact on the world environment. And if we're meeting that, more people can do it because the baseline is lower in a certain country, the better. Because your mandate is not to make it harder, your mandate is more.
Yeah, so the mandate is also to prevent greenwashing. That's also another thing that we face. It's a big question for us. That's when projects are certified, do they really save on the amount of energy and water that they're saying? But when it comes to their GHG emissions, is it right? So that's also another thing that we are really concerned about. And it is why most investors prefer to work with the global certifications because they want to trust it. Right? So that's also another discussion altogether.
Yes, so just for developers, I think when you can have a philosophical conversation, the real benefit is your cost savings. So if you're 20% less, then it's 20% less on your energy, 20% less on your water bills, and that's what you should be looking at, your bottom line, your profitability, which is improving as long as you're implementing all this. Then for IFC, I think we can agree that all Kenyan buildings get a grant and automatically.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we are really keen on is being able to implement magic. I mean, the market accelerator for green construction here, it would be a game changer because it would make it easy for developers that want to build green to just forget about the extra cost of going green and make sure the project is green, right? Because that extra cost is going to be paid for by that program, right? The only problem is it has to go with an IFC investment to a financial institution, right? So, and that's sometimes is where the issue is. We need to get the right financial institution, agree on the right terms and all that, have a bank that's really supporting developers, because we wouldn't want a bank to get that money and then just keep it. That money has to be disbursed, so we should see the pipeline for that particular bank that year. So it's really what we want to get happening. I mean, South Africa, we've been able to do this with at least 3 or 4 banks over there, and it's going well.
To answer my colleague Andrew, if you can access grid financing, which is that you pay like 9% interest instead of 15%, it also reduces your cost. And if your mortgage buyers can access green mortgages at 9% instead of 15%, it also makes it easier for you to sell. Yeah. So do you know if there's any certification apart from EDGE that is absolute in terms of CO2 emission per meter square and not relative to your peers in the same country?
I need to check. Maybe I'm sure there should be, because there are lots of these certifications that are just country specific, especially in the developed countries. They just do certification just for themselves, right? There's only a few like LEED, EDGE, that is done for the global world. So we need to now look at what the different scenarios would be, right? But then for the country-specific ones, I think those ones should be just absolute, straightforward and simple. Yeah. And I like your point on the green mortgages. So actually, APSA did this in South Africa, where they provided green mortgages to one of our clients. And that's had a lower interest rate compared to what was on the market, right? So it worked well for them because they got a lot more clients wanting to take that green mortgage. The developer also got a lot more people buying because their project was, it was possible for clients to access that lower interest rate, right? So both the bank and then the developer and even the end user, they all benefited, yeah.
You see, for other than the tenant or the developer who is looking at cost savings, every other person is interested in the green companies because of their impact story. I mean, if you think about it, investors are now demanding all your processes meet ENC, ESG standards, and they are focused on impact. So these absolute numbers then become useful. So at that moment, I'm not looking at the saving on energy. I'm looking at what is the impact of me insisting, if I'm a bank, wherever I give money, is green. Because me as now as a bank, I can now report that on impact. And because of that product, I'm able to attract investors who are interested in impact. So that is a bigger conversation than just a cost saving. I'm not saying the savings are not beautiful, they are, but at the end of the day, we are all interested in impact because we want to make the world better. That's a big conversation.
And you're able to see the impact. So for each of them, you're able to see the impact. So the numbers up there, right? It's calculating the impact for each project.
But
and
relative to the country.
No, so it's relative, it's based on what measures you choose. Well, yeah, so overall related to the country, but then based on the measures that you are choosing. So it's calculating based on all these measures. So if you have a project that is very efficient, what it means is your impact is higher compared to a project that is less efficient.
Where I'm using green energy, my source of water, I'm collecting, run water, cleaning it, recycling, all that. I'm very friendly to the environment. My contribution by just doing that to the greater world is much better than that person who relative in another country where you have to. And that's why I think how easy what we want to say. To say that, so if you're in Africa, where we are doing everything green, you attract funding because you are more competitive internationally. So that's really the value for me in going to this kind of.
Okay, so I think we've gone over and beyond our time. I'm sure lunch is over by now. So thank you so much, and you can always reach out to us. You can take my card and then reach out to us if you want any further discussion, or you can always go to the IFC website on Edge. So edgebuildings.com. That's it. No, it's not an app that you can download. So it's an app that you can use online. So you have to go to the website and then just click on the app and then you use it. But you cannot download it now. Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much.